I call Dr. Megan Woods.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and it's my pleasure to take a call in this section of the estimates debate and to listen to the words of the member who sat down, and very fine words they were. You'd believe everything was honky-dory with the environment. You wouldn't actually realise that this is a government that is failing in some key issues of the environment, that we have a government that is not being straight with New Zealanders in a range of issues, from the housing crisis right through to a number of issues. We certainly have a government that is not being straight with New Zealanders about the state of our environment. I just want to pick up on where Mr Simpson was concluding, talking about the wonderful work in terms of our waterways. We have just received a report from the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment that gives us the facts about what the state of New Zealand water is and the impact of dairying on our waterways throughout the country and what they are. So to stand in the House and say everything is fine is just a symbol of how this government is governing, and it's closing their eyes to the reality, it is closing their ears to what is happening around them, and it is certainly not being straight, because in this area our environment is being left behind, Mr Speaker. And I want to deal primarily with two key issues in my address today that we covered off at the hearings, and my colleague Ruth Dyson will pick up further areas, but one of which is in the area of RMA reform. You might remember RMA reform. It's something this government's been talking about for a very long time. It's also something this government's been spending quite a lot of money on. So when we have a look at the appropriations that this government is putting in under RMA reform, we see $3 million there for contractors. One has to assume that's $3 million. That's right, $3 million for contractors, because this is a government that is failing to get its reforms across the line. It is also a government that is failing to take the offer from Labor that we will work with them on the sensible bits of RMA reform. We will. We have put that offer. Nikki Wagner's looking confused. You might like to look at the papers. But it's there. It is there that Labor has put the offer on the table, and we have said that we will work with National on an MPS around housing and sensible reform, things that can be achieved. But that has been just reacted with blankness. No intention to work together for sustainable, enduring solutions for such a linchpin piece of legislation, such as the resource management. Instead, we've got $3 million in this appropriation there for spin doctors and contractors to play catch-up, because the Minister has dropped the ball on RMA reform. He has mucked it up from everything, from woe to go. Not only the content of what National are intending to do around gutting the fundamental provisions of the RMA, but he's mucked up the relations with the coalition partners too, and can't get it across the line, and the taxpayer is left holding the $3 million bill for Nick Smith's ineptitude in this particular area. The taxpayer is of course paying the bill and footing the bill for Nick Smith's ineptitude in a range of areas, but in the area of RMA, let's just call that $3 million. And then I want to turn my attention to the issue of climate change, Mr Chairman. That this accounts for 48% of the vote environment budget. That this is a substantial part of the environmental budget, even more actually if you factor in the money that is set aside for the ETS. So to hear speakers in the previous debate say that Labor is the conservative, fuddy-duddy party who doesn't want to see progress, I have two words for Mr Bishop: 11%. That is the paltry sum that this government is thinking it is going to take to the Paris talks, that they think that that is a credible position for New Zealand to go to the Paris talks about what our emissions reduction target should be. It is not. This is a government that is being criticised all over the world for its negligence in this area, and it certainly is not enough. It is a government that has absolutely let the emissions trading scheme fail to do what it needs to do through letting the price of carbon collapse. It is a government that is not incentivising the things that we need to be be doing around planting forests, and it is a government that won't take the hard decisions that it needs to take around what we need to do around CO2 emission reduction. And it is a government that will not have the sensible and needed conversation about how it is that we account for methane in our emissions target profile, and how and when we bring this in. This is a government that is content to be a laggard in the world, to be criticised by other nations for not doing its bit, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Megan.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
I'm calling the Minister.